Good evening, everyone, and happy Halloween to all of you in Alaska. As always, we encourage you to stay up to date with your local weather information, no matter how spooky. On this October 31st, we know it will be cold and dark in many locations across Alaska. Hopefully the visibility is not too bad, but a spooky fog could be setting up. We'll take a look at the weather map here in just a moment. In the meantime, make sure you have this number handy, 1-800-472-0391. It's a great way to stay up to date with your local forecast information, no matter what part of Alaska you're calling from. Weather.gov/Alaska is a great online resource, and there is an easier address to have on your phone. As I showed many of you at AFN just a few weeks ago now, mobile, mobile.weather.gov works just like an app. Once you get it set to your location, save it to your home screen, and it works like a charm. David.Snider@NOAA.gov is an easy way to find me with email. If you can't get your question answered right away, let me know. I'm happy to help any way I can. Let's take a look at the warnings across northwestern Arkansas. What on earth am I thinking? Northwestern Alaska. See, it was a little bit of a trick. Now it's my turn to give you a treat. Here is the weather moving across northwestern Alaska, and winter weather warnings, storm warnings, are in effect for the Kobuk and Noatak valleys, generally northwest of Noatak, where we're looking at about 7 to 15 inches of snow due to that southwest wet wind blowing into the higher terrain here. It doesn't look like there's going to be a great deal of wind. It will be windy. There may be some gusts upwards of 15 to 30 miles per hour, but in this region we're expecting to see as much as 7 inches and maybe a total of 15 inches in some cases. Now for the Chukchi coast, we're expecting lesser amounts, about 5 to 10 inches of snow, but a little more wind as you get out closer to the coastline there. Some of these gusts could be strong at times, but as you move up toward the Chukchi coast itself, especially from Point Hope to Wainwright, we're expecting at about 2 to 4 inches of snow and some stronger gusts that could reduce visibility even more. This entire region will continue to see snow through tonight, and by tomorrow morning we'll start to see some improvements from south to north. So around 6 o'clock in the morning around the Kotzebue Sound region, we're going to let this winter storm warning expire. Northward, we're going to see the winter storm warning expire around 6 o'clock, and then by 10 o'clock tomorrow night, that winter weather advisory should also be dropped. So for many across the northwestern coast, snow and wind will be your big ticket items here as we go ahead through the next 24 hours. The most amount of snow, it looks like, will be here across some of the higher terrain in the foothills northwest of Noatak with as much as 15 inches of snow. Here's the big picture on this Halloween. You'll notice we have a large area of generally dry weather across southwest, the northern Gulf, and the interior. High pressure's in charge right now, and across the western part of Yukon and the eastern interior, we're still looking at a very stable and pretty cold area of high pressure that's just holding on, and it's pushing all the moisture out of the way. Except we're starting to see some weather systems move in from the south, kind of cutting in on that southern edge. And as this happens, the next wave is going to work its way into southern parts of southeast. So as the day goes on tomorrow, you're going to see clouds filling in across Ketchikan and Sitka all the way up toward Juneau. And as that happens, visibility is going to come down, the ceilings are going to come down, and we'll probably see some rain working across the central and southern parts of southeast. But because there's colder and drier air lingering right here around Juneau and points north up toward White Pass and the Klondike Highway, all the way up toward Yakutat, chances are this is going to turn over to snow. You may see a little bit of rain initially, but it looks like there's a setup for maybe an inch or two of snow across northern parts of the Panhandle, so keep an eye on that. Out across the west, also, as that high pressure system's moving out of the way, we're making room for another stronger system across the North Pacific. And this is going to work its way toward the eastern Aleutians and the southwestern part of Alaska. It looks like it's going to just kind of hover out here, but as it approaches, it may bring up the winds and certainly bring in the rain for the eastern chain. In the meantime, as all of that's getting ready to happen, what is happening is a decent southwesterly flow, and fetch is working its way up across the Bering Strait, and that's why you're getting the snow and the wind across northwestern Alaska at this point. For the eastern Beaufort seacoast, it's drawing in an easterly flow across the ice and continuing to freeze things up. Let's take a look at the weather chart. Here's our high, 1,026 millibars here. Remember I was telling you about the wind working across northwestern Alaska. There it is, a warm front moving across the northern Arctic coast, some blowing snow around AKwx, periods of moderate to occasionally heavy snow for the northwest. Rain reported in Nome this afternoon. And then southwest of that, clouds and fog for parts of southwest. Snow falling around Gulkana, and as you head up the Dalton Highway, we're running into some snow there north and west of Fairbanks. And areas of snow falling across the boundary there for the boundary range itself, north of southeast. And then further south, here is that developing storm for southeast. This is going to track to the northeast toward the Panhandle as we head through tonight. Wave out here just south of Unalaska and Dutch Harbor, that's only about 991 millibars. Not a big show just yet. That will open up into just kind of a traveling wave of low pressure and start up some rainfall as we head through the rest of tonight. Another wave of low pressure west and southwest of that will be the one to watch at 972 millibars there. That's going to strengthen a little bit more over the next couple days. Here's the low and the potential snowmaker, I guess we could call it, for the capital city at 984 millibars. This will be traveling north and east and strengthening as we go. You'll see the winds come up a little bit more across the inside passages as we head through tonight and into tomorrow. Once again, colder, drier air should be sitting on top of the northern parts of southeast, so this will be a pretty good setup for keeping things dry, at least for the first part of tomorrow, it looks like. High pressure east of the Alcan border is sitting there around 1,027 millibars, and plenty of possibilities for some localized fog as we go through the rest of tonight. A south and westerly flow is working its way up through the Bering Strait. That's going to keep snow in the forecast for mainly the western Arctic coast, all the way down the Chukchi coast into the Kotzebue Sound region. And it's just warm enough that we can't rule out rain mixing with snow for many across the north and west. That southerly wind will continue. For Thursday, really not a huge change here. Weather will gradually improve from southwest to north and east throughout the day. Remember, we said the winter weather advisories and the storm warnings will be releasing around 6 o'clock in the morning and then about 10 o'clock at night for some of our more northern areas. But for areas northwest of Noatak, again, you could see as much as 15 inches of snow. Low pressure by the end of the day in southeast is creeping its way north and east, and now that moisture is moving into that colder, drier air. So temperatures should be coming down, and snow might be coming down as well. Right now, current thinking about 1 to 2 inches there. Keep up with the forecast at weather.gov/Juneau, or follow them on Twitter, NWS Juneau there on Twitter. It'll be a great resource for you tomorrow. Pockets of fog isolated across some parts of the interior thanks to high pressure just kind of putting a big lid on the atmosphere for right now. And then out across the Bering, look at the zone controlled by the circulation, the low pressure system here out across the North Pacific and the Bering, all wrapped up in that. That's because low pressure is dropping to 961 millibars by Thursday. A healthy southerly flow for everywhere east of Atka and across Nikolsky, Unalaska, all the way out through the Alaska Peninsula itself, Cold Bay, False Pass, Sandpoint, all wrapped up into that southerly flow. And if this is right by Friday, and there will be some changes, I think, as we go forward, but it does look like it deepens to a healthy low around 958 millibars perhaps by Friday. So it is going to be a wind maker there. The seas are going to come up pretty sharply as we go through Thursday night into Friday. So watch for strong gales to storms across some of the region there. This will likely fall apart, or at least dampen itself down a little bit as we get into Friday night and Saturday, and then just kind of hover and lurk across the northwestern Gulf. For parts of southeast, periods of rain and snow in the north, and then all rain as you head south of Sitka toward Petersburg, Heidelberg, Ketchikan, and Annette. High pressure still in the same old place. Snow continues across the northwest, but with a lot less fanfare as we get into Saturday. Let's take a look at temperatures here. 30s and 40s for southeast tonight. Teens and 20s for south central. Kodiak, your 35. Bristol Bay temps just shy of 30 degrees. Bethel about 26. Nunivak Island 35, Savunga, Gamble about 39, Utqiagvik near 9 degrees, 0 around Kaktovik, 7 below in Fort Yukon, and going even colder, Arctic Village down to 18 below, single-digit temps for Fairbanks. You're going to cool off really quickly after sunset tonight. It looks like things may clear out for you. Watch for some patchy fog, of course. Teens and 20s around the middle Tanana Valley tomorrow, 13 for Northway and Eagle. Up north, warming up for the northwest coast, and mid to upper 30s for southwest.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
On aviation weather now, you'll notice IFR conditions starting to creep in from south to north across parts of southeast as we go through your daytime tomorrow and into Friday. Notice MVFR setting in across central and southern parts of southeast as we go through the day. And as you look up north, VFR conditions for Chilkoot and White Pass to start. As you look out west around the Alaska Peninsula, all the way out through the central and eastern chain, IFR conditions are lurking nearby, if not right overhead, but MVFR should be the predominant phase. Across the northwest coast, around the northern end of the Chukchi Sound, IFR conditions are expected there with MVFR across a large part of the North Slope. Most of the interior, most of your main passes through the Alaska Range and the Brooks Range will be VFR. That trend should continue through Thursday afternoon, but notice the sizable shift there in the ceiling and visibility across northern parts of southeast where snow may become possible as we get into the afternoon and evening hours there, especially around the capital city and northward. Southward, it's going to be rain, but that could be dense enough that really lowers visibility from Sitka all the way down toward Ketchikan, Annette, Craig, and Klawock. To the west, high pressure still in charge of Nunivak Island and all of your southwest capes and Bristol Bay, Kodiak Island included. The Pribilofs, of course, right on that edge of MVFR at least, with IFR conditions generally south of the Alaska Peninsula and the eastern chain. As we get into Friday morning, no substantial change for visibility or ceilings across the interior or the northern passes. Look for IFR to linger across central and southern parts of the Panhandle. Northern areas begin to clear out a little bit more. IFR conditions linger south of the Sand Point region and the Shumagins all the way to the eastern Aleutians. And MVFR is expected across the northwest coast, but just offshore of the Beaufort Seacoast. A little bit of that will shift around a little bit during the afternoon, generally north of Point Hope and Point Lay, or just along Point Hope and Point Lay. South of that, VFR conditions all the way down through the Seward Peninsula and the YK Delta. A little bit of MVFR sneaking in through Cape Newenham and around the higher terrain there. Westward toward the Pribilofs, MVFR and IFR expected north of Adak and Atka and all the way through the Alaska Peninsula, Kodiak Island, and centered up on low pressure there over the Gulf with some improvements across southeast, but MVFR lingering around the capital city and south. Your pass conditions, as we saw, look pretty good for the interior. Anaktuvik and Adigan Pass all looking to be VFR. Lake Clark and Merrill Pass all the way through Rainy and Windy Pass are going to have smooth sailing there for visibility and ceiling concerns. Isabel Pass and Mentasta Pass looking to be VFR conditions there. Tanita Pass we expect to see visual flight rule all day long. Portage Pass looks pretty good, but Chilkoot and White Pass we expect to see changes developing during the afternoon, especially coming in from south to north as that low pressure system is making its way onshore. As we look at the freezing levels, surface freezing lines holding close to the northern Gulf Coast and really along the coastal areas of all of Alaska, all the way up through the Chukchi. You can see that surface freezing line, though, working its way northward as warmer air is coming in on that south and westerly wind. To the south across the Gulf of Alaska, a very tight pressure gradient and temperature gradient here. As low pressure is working in from the south, it will be working its warmer air up and over the surface freezing line there, so watch for some changes there and the potential of snow and mixed precipitation across the central parts of the Panhandle. Icing potential is generally going to be below about 4,000 feet north of the capital cities. We get into Thursday afternoon, watch for changes there, and the freezing level will be coming up across southern parts of the Panhandle throughout the entire day. Up north, the North Slope generally above 2,000 feet, and the same goes for the moisture wrapping around into the Pribilofs, and then much warmer conditions across the central and eastern chain. Levels there showing isolated moderate icing potential generally above 8,000 feet. Our jet stream shows a large trough of low pressure digging out across the Pacific and the Bering Sea. A weak area of high pressure still exists across the YK Delta, sending that stronger south and westerly surge up through the Bering Strait. You'll see that reflected in the lower levels here in a minute. A ridge of high pressure sitting across the west coast of the U.S. is driving in that strong southerly flow. A pineapple-like express extending all the way down toward the Hawaiian Islands and pushing moisture into northern parts of the plains with the trough across the lower 48. At 9,000 feet, you can see that southerly flow working up the west coast. That will initiate more wind for the northwestern parts of our state as we go through time. And low pressure sitting across the Gulf, driving in that strong south and easterly flow across the outer coastal areas for Thursday. You can see it's a little bit stronger here at 3,000 feet. A southwesterly flow across southern parts of southeast, keeping things a little bit milder, but high pressure firmly entrenched here across the interior with generally light winds for most places except for north and western coastal regions. Stronger southerly winds working through the central and eastern chain, 50 to 60 knots. That's where we find turbulence tomorrow, moderate chop at least, below 4,000 feet for the central and eastern Aleutians and all the way out toward the Shumagin Islands. Below 5,000 feet for most of southeastern Alaska, especially along coastal areas, and then along the northwest coast, below 5,000 feet. Be careful out there.
Hello, I'm a GOES-R series weather satellite orbiting 22,000 miles above Earth. I can see a lot of cool stuff from up here, and I take pictures of it with my spiffy camera that has 16 different settings. I have such good eyesight, I can see clouds, snow, smoke, smog, and ash, so I can warn you about dangerous conditions and help you avoid them. When storms are brewing, I watch them closely and help with hurricane, tornado, and flood warnings to help keep you safe. And my lightning mapper tracks lightning strikes way up in the sky, even through dark, dense clouds. I also help with search and rescue missions. I listen for distress signals from emergency beacons and tell search and rescue teams just where to find people who need help. But even when I'm keeping a close eye on Earth, I'm monitoring weather out here in space, too. I watch the sun for big bursts of energy, which send waves of radiation toward Earth that can affect power grids, block communication with planes, cause errors in GPS, and damage satellites. Space weather is also very dangerous for astronauts working outside the International Space Station. I warn them so they can get inside where they'll be safe. So the next time you watch a weather report or check your phone for the forecast, remember, that's me. So look to the sky and wave. I'll be here. Whoa! Things are looking pretty bad down there. But don't worry. I'm going to give weather forecasters a heads up and help you stay safe. I'm a GOES-R series weather satellite, and one of my jobs is to keep an eye on Earth's weather as I orbit above. But I'm 22,000 miles above Earth. How does your local weather forecaster know what I see all the way up here? First, I have to figure out what's going on. I point my special camera at the Earth and take pictures of the clouds I see below. My pictures show where the clouds are, but I also take lots of other notes about the clouds. For example, how high they reach into the atmosphere, how much rain they might cause, and when a severe storm may be forming. But I can't keep all of this information to myself. I have to share it with weather forecasters down on Earth. A big antenna is waiting for my call. Since I'm a satellite, I send my pictures and notes in a computer language of ones and zeros. Luckily, the antenna speaks my language. Computers connected to the antenna organize my notes and combine all of the pictures and cloud information and translate them into weather maps. They send a version of the maps back up to me. I'll hold on to these for later. Another copy of the maps is split into smaller pieces. This helps the maps move faster from one place to another. The map pieces are then sent for processing before being sent back up in the sky to a communication satellite. From there, the maps are picked up by antennas at the National Weather Service forecast offices in each region. There are more than 100 offices. I also take the maps that I received and send them out to companies that specialize in making the maps more colorful and better for viewing on TVs and computers. The colorful maps and the maps from the forecast offices then go to your local weather forecaster. The forecaster combines the information from these maps with lots of other information, like model forecast data and radar data, to make predictions about the upcoming weather in your area. And that's how I help you find out if bad weather is going to ruin your afternoon plans. You're welcome. Soon it will be my time to shine. In outer space. I'm the GOES-R satellite. That stands for Geostationary Operational Environmental Satellite. And the R stands for my order in this series of weather satellites. Like my older siblings before me, I'll do a lot for watching weather, but I'm pretty special because I have a lot of new gadgets. I'm originally from Colorado, but my journey to space has a few stops along the way. I'll be shipped in a very special satellite shipping container to Kennedy Space Center. Moving me around is not easy. I'm over 18 feet wide and weigh 6,000 pounds. And then things get really exciting. I get loaded onto an Atlas V541 launch vehicle. A big rocket! Woo! After Atlas and I blast off together, my compartment separates from the launch vehicle and I continue to climb higher and higher. Then I break away completely and unfurl my solar panel and antenna. After that, I have to use my thrusters to get into just the right position, 22,000 miles above the ground and traveling 1.9 miles per second to keep up with Earth's rotation. And then I can officially start my job along with my fellow GOES sisters, where I take advanced pictures for more accurate weather forecasts, map lightning in real time, and improve the monitoring of the sun's activity. It's going to be so awesome! I can't wait!
And now, marine weather around Alaska. Welcome back to your marine weather. Bob Ross here to finish out your weather segment here with my friend Little Bit. Dave Snider had to step out for a little while. He asked me to talk about the sea ice up in the Beaufort Sea. He says it's been filling in quite a bit. I see this is a pretty picture. We're just going to let the ice be. It's doing its own ice thing. Happy little ice there. Some of these areas will be filling in a little bit more as we go. We just don't want to paint it over too soon because the wind's coming up from the southwest. That's going to chew away at the ice edge a little bit. So what you see is really what it's going to be here, right? A little bit? Yeah, this is just going to be happy little ice as we go through the next couple days across the Beaufort Sea. Don't forget about the website to check out the latest outlook there for the next couple days, weather.gov/Anchorage/ice. You know, I'd like to bring in some more color here. What do you say? Let's just kind of bring in a little more color across the region and see if we can't paint in some more of these happy little winds across the region. As we get into Thursday, stronger outflow winds coming off the continent, blowing into gales for many out across the Gulf. 40 knots or so for many. Look for the gusts coming up to 45 knots just outside of the Dixon entrance. 12-foot seas there, 14-foot seas outside of the Cross Sound region. Northerly winds coming down through the inside passage, 30 to 40 knots expected, with 6 to 8 foot seas. Remember, weather will be changing from south to north as we go throughout the day. Be the weather. Just let it be. Let the wind talk to you as you go ahead and work on your painting today. Across Friday, northerly winds gusting out of the Lynn Canal, 40 knots with 8-foot seas. Northerlies across Stevens Passage, 25 knots and 5-foot seas. And a broad westerly flow sweeping in behind the front, 25 to 35 knots with 17 to 18-foot seas. Meanwhile, northerly winds coming out of the Cross Sound region with 13-foot seas there. Northeasterlies starting to settle down a little bit more on Saturday, but a strong wind out of the north helping to keep things cold for southeast as we go. Let's go to south central. Much calmer conditions here. There's nothing wrong with it. There's no wrong weather, none. Northeasterlies outside of Hitchenbrook entrance gusting to 40 knots. Northeasterlies coming down through Cook Inlet, 15 to 25. Look for 3 to 7-foot seas there, don't you think? Yeah. Okay, as we get into Friday, wind still fairly tame across Prince William Sound in the northern Gulf, 20 to 30 knots, but a stronger wind still kind of working its way across the Barren Islands, 35 knots or so with 13 to 15-foot seas. Stronger northeasterly winds coming down Cook Inlet. For Thursday, north and easterly winds blowing across the Alaska Peninsula, 20 to 35 knots, 13-foot seas on the Pacific side, 9-foot seas there north and west of Sand Point and Cold Bay, 25 knots inside of Shelikof Strait. By Friday, winds are coming up there. You can see 26 feet coming up just south of Sand Point with gales and perhaps some storm force winds up toward AKwx, 50 knots with 20-foot seas, and easterlies coming across Shelikof Strait. And as we look at the Aleutians, 30 knots blowing in across the eastern chain, 9 to 10-foot seas across the central and eastern chain there south of Unalaska and Nikolsky, and a northeasterly flow wrapping around that. As we get into Friday, you can see those stronger winds working their way in across the Alaska Peninsula and the eastern chain. We're just going to let that wind do its thing. Just don't work against it. Just work against that northerly wind working its way southward into the North Pacific. 25 to 30 knots there, 13 to 16-foot seas at their strongest there as we get into Friday. Across the west coast, light winds working out of Norton Sound, an east and southeasterly flow working its way 15 to 25 knots and 30 to 35 knots moving into St. Paul and St. George with 13-foot seas on Thursday. Winds respond, just letting that wind and the weather happen there. We're just going to be the weather as we move into the southern Bering Sea. 15 to 18-foot seas there with storm force winds at least outside of the Kuskokwim Delta, and offshore winds out of the Norton Sound region, 5 to 6-foot seas there for your Friday. As we look at the Beaufort Sea, 15 to 25 over the ice, stronger southwesterly winds working up the Chukchi coast, 25 to 30 knots there with 6 to 7 to even 8-foot seas there. Winds go light coming out of the north on Friday, again working to keep a lot of that ice right in place across the north coast. For tonight, Dave wanted me to remind you, right, a little bit, that winter storm warnings and winter weather advisories are still posted across the northwest coast and parts of the western Brooks Range. You could see as much as 7 to 15 inches north and west of Noatak there. So just going to paint in those happy snowflakes on those happy little trees and just going to let the weather be the weather. Don't fight it. Just let it happen. This is your painting. Remember, you can't do anything wrong here. That front will lay across the west. We're going to watch one storm move into northern parts of southeast as we head into tonight and tomorrow. Maybe some light snow for the Juneau area. The winds will be more of a thing for more other parts of southeast. Thanks for watching.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.